The first howl shattered my sleep like glass, a primal wail that clawed through the stillness of my Portland suburb. I bolted upright, heart pounding, the clock glowing 2:17 a.m. on my nightstand. Outside, under the swollen full moon, a naked man stood in my backyard, his eyes burning gold, staring straight through my window into my soul. My name is Elias Torres, a 25-year-old barista with a knack for overanalyzing everything except the impossible. I'd moved to this quiet corner of Oregon to escape the chaos of my old life in Chicago, family drama, a string of bad dates, and a job that drained my spirit. But nothing could have prepared me for this. The man outside wasn't just any man. His name was Cale Ramsey, 27, a drifter I'd met 3 weeks ago at the coffee shop where I worked. He'd ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and lingered at the counter, his warm brown skin catching the sunlight as he asked about my favorite hiking trails. His smile was disarming, his voice low and smooth, like he knew secrets the world hadn't caught up to. We'd talked for hours that day, and when he left, he'd brushed my hand, leaving a strange warmth that lingered for days. Now here he was, stark naked in my backyard, howling like something out of a myth. I should have called the cops. I should have screamed. But something in his eyes, wild, desperate, yet achingly familiar, held me frozen. What would you do if the person you couldn't stop thinking about turned out to be something more than human? How do you process a moment that defies everything you thought you knew? I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking, but Cale's voice cut through the night, low and urgent. Elias, don't. It's me. I need you to listen. I cracked the window, just enough to hear him clearly. Cale, what the hell is going on? Why are you like this? My voice trembled, caught between fear and a strange, magnetic pull toward him. He stepped closer, moonlight carving shadows across his muscular frame. I didn't choose this, he said, his voice raw. 3 weeks ago, when I touched you, something happened. I marked you. You're mine. Marked me. My mind reeled. What does that even mean? It means you're my mate, he said, his eyes softening despite the wildness in them. I'm a werewolf, Elias. And every full moon, I'll come for you. I can't stop it. What would you feel if someone told you your life was no longer your own? That a single touch had bound you to a creature of legend? I wanted to laugh it off, to call him crazy, but the sincerity in his voice, the way his gaze held mine, made my chest tighten with something I couldn't name. Over the next few days, I avoided Cale. I changed my shifts at the coffee shop, ignored his texts, and kept my curtains drawn. But the memory of his eyes haunted me. I started researching werewolves, diving into online forums and old folklore books from the library. Most of it was nonsense, silver bullets, full moon madness. But one obscure text mentioned a mate's mark, a bond formed by a werewolf's touch that tied two souls together, human or not. The mark wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, a pull that grew stronger with every lunar cycle. Why do we cling to logic when our hearts scream for something more? I found myself sketching Cale's face in the margins of my notebook, his sharp jawline, the curve of his lips. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was telling the truth. And worse, I couldn't stop wanting to see him again. A week later, I ran into him at a farmer's market in downtown Portland. He was wearing a flannel shirt, jeans, and a sheepish grin, like he hadn't been howling at my window. Elias, he said, stepping closer, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. Then why didn't you warn me? I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. You can't just mark someone and expect them to be okay with it. I didn't know it would happen, he admitted, running a hand through his dark hair. I've been a werewolf for 5 years, and I've never marked anyone before. It's rare. It's special. What does it mean to be chosen by someone, or something, beyond your control? I wanted to stay angry, but his honesty disarmed me. We ended up walking through the market together, talking about everything except werewolves. He told me about growing up in New Orleans, about his love for jazz, and his dream of opening a bookstore. I told him about my art, my sketches, my fear of being stuck in one place forever. By the time we parted ways, I felt that warmth again, spreading from my chest to my fingertips. That night, I dreamed of him, his human form, his wolf form, his eyes always the same, golden and searching. When I woke, my heart was racing, and one question burned in my mind. What does it mean to be someone's mate? The next full moon came faster than I expected. I'd spent the days leading up to it torn between dread and anticipation. Kale had texted me daily, small messages that felt like lifelines. Thinking of you. Can we talk? I hadn't responded, but I hadn't blocked him either. Something about him, his vulnerability, his intensity, kept me tethered to him, even as my mind screamed to run. When the moon rose, full and heavy over the pines, I was ready. I sat by my window, curtains open, a mug of coffee cooling in my hands. At 1:43 a.m., the howl came again, softer this time, almost pleading. Kale stood in the same spot, his silhouette framed by moonlight, his eyes locked on mine. Why do we fear what we're drawn to most? I opened the window, my breath catching as he stepped closer. Elias, he said, his voice a low rumble. I can't stay away. The mark, it's pulling me to you. Then tell me everything, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. No more secrets. He nodded, sitting cross-legged on the grass, still unapologetically bare. I tossed him a blanket from my porch, and he wrapped it around himself with a small, grateful smile. Over the next hour, he told me his story. 5 years ago, he'd been attacked while hiking in the Smoky Mountains. The wolf that bit him wasn't just an animal. It was a rogue werewolf, one who didn't follow the pack's rules. Kale survived, but the bite changed him forever. He'd learned to control the shift, to live as both man and wolf. But the mark was something new, something he didn't fully understand. The mark isn't just about me, he said, his eyes searching mine. It's about us. It means we're connected, Elias. Not just on full moons, but always. What does it mean to be bound to someone in a way that defies explanation? I wanted to dismiss it, to chalk it up to folklore, but the warmth in my chest, the way my skin tingled when he said my name, it felt real. Too real. Over the next few weeks, we met regularly, always in human form. We hiked the trails around Mount Tabor, shared late-night tacos at a food truck, and talked about everything from our fears to our dreams. Kale was funny, thoughtful, and fiercely protective, but there was a shadow in his eyes, a fear he wouldn't name. I started to notice things, how he tensed when we passed certain alleys, how he avoided crowded places. One night, over beers at a quiet bar, he finally told me the truth. There's a pack, he said, his voice low. They don't take kindly to rogues like me, and they definitely won't like that I'm marked a human. Are they dangerous? I asked, my stomach twisting. They can be, he said. If they find out about you, about us, they might see you as a threat. Why do the things we love most come with the greatest risks? I reached across the table, my hand brushing his. The warmth was there again, electric and undeniable. I'm not afraid. I lied, and he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The next full moon was different. Kale didn't just howl. He climbed onto my porch, his hands pressed against the glass. Elias, he whispered, his voice raw with need. I don't know how to protect you from this. From me. Then don't, I said, opening the door. Show me who you are. What happens when you let go of fear and embrace the unknown? That night, I saw him shift for the first time. His body rippled, bones reshaping, fur sprouting, until a massive wolf stood before me, its eyes still Kale's, golden and warm. I should have been terrified, but all I felt was awe. I reached out, my fingers brushing his fur, and he leaned into my touch, a low rumble in his chest. Life with Kale was a dance between the ordinary and the impossible. By day, we were just two guys falling for each other, sharing coffee, stealing kisses, laughing over stupid memes. But every full moon, the world shifted, and I was reminded that love wasn't just flowers and promises. It was raw, messy, and sometimes dangerous. The pack found us on a rainy October night. I'd invited Kale over for dinner, a rare moment of normalcy. We were halfway through a pan of lasagna when the doorbell rang. Kale froze, his fork clattering to the plate. "Don't answer it," he whispered, his eyes darting to the window. But it was too late. The door burst open, and three figures stepped inside. Two men and a woman, all in their 30s, their presence heavy with authority. The woman, with sharp cheekbones and eyes like steel, spoke first. "Kale Ramsey, you've broken our laws. Marking a human without permission is forbidden. What do you do when the world you're building with someone is threatened by forces you can't control?" I stood, my heart pounding, but Kale stepped in front of me, his stance protective. "He didn't choose this," Kale said, his voice steady despite the tension in his shoulders. "I marked him by accident. Punish me, not him." The woman's gaze flicked to me, cold and assessing. "The human is already involved," she said. "He bears your mark. That makes him our business." I wanted to scream, to tell them to leave, but Kale's hand found mine, grounding me. "Elias is innocent," he said. "I'll do whatever you want. Just leave him out of this." Why do we fight so hard for the ones we love, even when it means risking everything? The pack leader, a man named Victor with a scar across his jaw, stepped forward. "You'll return to the pack," he said, "and the human will be watched. If he becomes a problem, we'll deal with him." They left as quickly as they'd come, but their threat lingered like smoke. Kale turned to me, his face pale. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I never wanted this for you." "Then why didn't you tell me about them?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and fear. "You kept this from me, Kale. How am I supposed to trust you?" He reached for me, but I stepped back. "I was trying to protect you," he said. "I thought if I kept you away from them, you'd be safe." What happens when trust is tested by secrets? For the first time, I saw fear in Kale's eyes, not for himself, but for me. It broke something in me, and I closed the distance between us, pulling him into a hug. "We'll figure this out," I whispered. "Together." The next few weeks were a blur of tension and planning. Kale taught me about the pack, how they valued secrecy above all, how they saw humans as outsiders, even threats. He told me about their leader, Victor, who ruled with an iron fist, and the woman, Mara, who was his enforcer. The third man, Luca, was younger, quieter, but Kale warned me not to underestimate him. We started meeting in secret, avoiding places where the pack might find us. Kale showed me how to recognize their signs, scratches on trees, faint scents in the air. But no matter how careful we were, I could feel their eyes on us, watching, waiting. One night, as we sat on a bench overlooking the Willamette River, Kale took my hand. "If anything happens to me," he said, his voice low, "promise me you'll run. Don't look back." "Don't say that." I snapped, my chest tightening. "We're in this together, Kale. No matter what. What does it mean to love someone so much you'd face a world that wants to tear you apart?" He kissed me then, slow and desperate, and for a moment, the world was just us, the river's murmur, and the moonlight on our skin. The final showdown came on the next full moon, in a clearing deep in the Columbia River Gorge. Kale had been summoned by the pack, and I refused to let him go alone. We drove in silence, the weight of what was coming pressing down on us. I could feel the mark on my skin, not a visible scar, but a warmth that pulsed with Kale's nearness. When we arrived, the pack was waiting. Victor, Mara, Luca, and a dozen others, their eyes glowing in the moonlight. Victor stepped forward, his voice cold. "You've defied us long enough, Kale. The human comes with us, or he dies. What do you do when the person you love is forced to choose between you and their world? Kale's hand tightened around mine, his body trembling with the effort to stay human. Elias is my mate, he said, his voice ringing with defiance. If you want him, you'll have to go through me. Mara laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. You're no match for us, rogue. Step aside, or we'll end you both. But something shifted in the air. Luca, the quiet one, stepped forward, his eyes on Kale. He's not alone, he said, his voice steady. I've seen how he looks at the human. It's real. It's worth fighting for. What happens when one voice of dissent changes everything? Luca's words sparked murmurs among the pack, some nodding, others glaring. Victor's face twisted with rage, but before he could speak, Kale shifted, his body exploding into fur and muscle. He lunged at Victor, and chaos erupted. I don't remember much of the fight, claws, teeth, blood, and howls. But I remember Kale, fierce and unyielding, fighting for me. I remember Luca standing by our side, his own wolf form smaller but relentless. And I remember the moment Victor fell, his body crumpling under Kale's weight. When it was over, the pack was scattered, some fleeing, others kneeling in submission. Kale shifted back, bloodied but alive, and pulled me into his arms. It's over, he whispered, his voice hoarse. You're safe. But it wasn't over. Not really. The pack was weakened, but they'd never fully accept us. Luca, now an ally, promised to keep them in check, but we knew we'd always be looking over our shoulders. What does it mean to build a life in the shadow of danger? We moved to a small cabin in the Oregon wilderness, far from the pack's reach. Kale taught me to track, to listen to the forest, to trust my instincts. I taught him to draw, to laugh, to believe in a future we could shape together. Every full moon, Kale still howls, not out of pain, but out of love, a song that echoes through the trees. And I howl back, not with my voice, but with my heart, because I've learned that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice, a fight, a promise to stand by someone no matter what the world throws at you. Why do we choose to love, even when it's hard? Because in the end, it's the only thing that makes us truly human, or, in Kale's case, more than human. It's the mark we leave on each other, not by accident, but by choice.